The wind outside the Civil Affairs Bureau that day was particularly cold. The March sunlight fell on my skin but brought no warmth. As I gripped the pen and signed the final stroke on the divorce agreement, my stomach suddenly cramped and heaved upward. Sourbow rise into my throat. The pen tip hesitated, leaving a small ink blot spreading across the paper. Shenhader Amikole. His hand pausing mid-signature. He wore a dark gray coat with the collar turned up, his jaw odd as if carved by a blade. I had looked at that face for 2 full years. Yet in that moment he felt more unfamiliar than a stranger. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice flat, as if inquiring about the weather by the roadside. I didn't answer. I clamped my hand over my mouth and rushed to the trash can nearby, bending over and retching several times, bringing up nothing. The morning light fell across my eyelids, blinding and dizzying. I crouched there, and suddenly a thought exploded in my mind. My period was nearly 2 weeks overdue. I stood up, wiped the corner of my mouth with the back of my hand, and forced a smile at him. "Don't worry about me. Just sign. Congratulations, Mr. Schunheim. You're a free man again." He stared at me for a few seconds, his Adam's apple moving as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he said nothing. He lowered his head and signed the remaining strokes. The staff stamped the documents. The red seal hit the cover of the divorce certificate, not loud but heavy, like a hammer striking the softest part of my chest. Shenho Yu took his copy and walked away without looking back. Leather shoes clicked across the marble floor, tap, 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 each step moving farther and farther away. I stood rooted to the spot, hands buried in my down jacket pockets, fingers gripping the edge of my divorce certificate until they went numb. When he was about 10 paces away, he paused, his back tensing as if he wanted to turn around. I didn't move. Neither did he. After a few seconds, he resumed walking and disappeared through the revolving door. I crouched down again. This time, it wasn't nausea, my knees had simply given out. My eyes burned, but I refused to let the tears fall. Linwan had never been one to cry easily. Her stubborn pride was the only thing she had left. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. "Done?" she asked, her voice a little hoarse. "Come home when you're done. I made you some spare rib soup." I was silent for half a minute, then took a breath. "Mom," I said, "I think I'm pregnant." There was no response on the other end for a long while. Finally, her voice came through. Trembling, "Whose else?" "Shen O's. You just divorced." "You two just divorced." She repeated it, as if the news had stunned her. "I know. But I'm keeping this child." Another long silence. At last, she said, "Come home first. We'll talk." I hung up and stood on the steps outside the Civil Affairs Bureau, watching the traffic stream by, and suddenly laughed. I laughed until tears poured out, unstoppable. I cursed myself silently. "Linwan, you've really got guts finding out you're carrying your ex-husband's baby on the day of your divorce. This plot would get called melodramatic even on TV. But you're going to see it through anyway." Those first few months, I was sick as a dog. Everything I ate came right back up. I dropped 10 pounds. My mother lugged 2 cartons of farm eggs all the way from our hometown and walked in demanding, "Your ex-mother-in-law called me." "What did she say?" "She told you to get rid of it. Said the Shen family won't acknowledge it." I kept shoving eggs into the fridge, not looking up. "They don't get a vote. You're really going to have it. Do you have any idea how hard it is to raise a child alone?" I closed the fridge door and turned to face her. Her hair had gone mostly white, and the crow's feet around her eyes were deeper than they'd been 2 years ago. My nose stunned. I walked over and hugged her. "Mom, I'm not afraid. This child came into my life for a reason." She patted my back and sighed. "You're just like your father, stubborn as a mule." I laughed. "Isn't that what you fell for in him? Your father would come back from the grave and have a heart attack all over again if he saw this." "He wouldn't. He'd be cheering me on." At the mention of my father, We both fell silent. He'd passed 3 years ago, liver cancer. From diagnosis to death, barely 2 months. That was when I learned that grief, at its deepest, makes no sound. In my 5th month of pregnancy, I went for an ultrasound. The doctor said it was a girl. All indicators normal. I lay on the exam table, staring at the blurry little shape on the screen, and finally let the tears flow down my temples and into the pillow beneath my head. When I got home, I scrolled through my phone contacts. Shenhui's name sat there quietly, his profile picture still the default gray grid. I tapped it open. The last message was from over 3 months ago. Sent by hand, don't be late to the Civil Affairs Bureau tomorrow. I'd replied okay. Scrolling further up, I found the early days of our marriage, a photo from our wedding. Me in white, his arm around my waist. Both of us grinning go of ILY. Beneath it, I'd sent a blushing emoji. Looking at it now, I thought how naive I'd been back then. My belly grew day by day. By the 8th month, bending down to tie my shoes was a struggle. The company approved my maternity leave, and I holed up in my rental apartment watching parenting videos, learning to change diapers. Burp a baby, decipher what different cries meant. My mother came every other day, always loaded down with bags of supplies. She asked me once, does Shenhui know? No. Aren't you going to tell him? Tell him what? On the day we divorced, he made it crystal clear he wanted nothing to do with me. But the child needs a father. She has me. I cut her off, my voice harsher than I'd intended. She opened her mouth, but let it go. The day my daughter was born, it snowed for the first time that winter. Just past 3 in the morning, the contractions jolted me awake. I called an ambulance myself, climbed in alone, signed the admission forms alone. The nurse asked where my family was. I said I had none. She glanced at me and didn't press. 17 hours of labor. Hours of labor. Shisenpi. A piercing cry announced my daughter's arrival into the world. The nurse placed her on my chest, a tiny, wrinkled, reddish ball that was frankly quite ugly. But looking at that little face, I sobbed like an idiot. Hello, little Tang Yuan, I croaked. I'm your mom. I called her Tang Yuan because she was born round as a dumpling. Her formal name I'd decided long ago, Lin Nian. Nian to remember. Too long for. What echo I was waiting for, I couldn't have told you. The days dragged on. I worked during the day, took care of the baby at night, running myself ragged like a perpetual motion machine. When Tang Yuan was 10 months old, I switched jobs and joined Stellar Design Institute. I left her with my mother the day of the interview, wore a black suit and 5-centimeter heels, and walked into that glassed hour. The interviewer was Li Feng, a woman in her 40s, HR director. She frowned slightly as she flipped through my resume. You worked at your previous company for 3 years with solid performance. Why leave? The ceiling was too low. I want to move up. You're raising a child alone. Will it affect your work? She looked up at me and smiled. All right. Start tomorrow. I spent 1.5 years at Stellar, moving from junior designer to project lead, managing a team of 5. Busy as hell, but at peace. Tang Yuan learned to walk. Learned to say mama. Learned to fight me for the TV remote. I thought life would just go on like that, quiet, steady, until that Monday morning. The company all-hands meeting announced a new president would be starting today. Moa. Sharp. Main conference room. I grabbed an Americano and found a seat in the corner. Next to me was Xiao Xiaotang, a colleague 2 years younger with a round face and bobbed hair, a notorious gossip. I heard the new president was sent from headquarters overseas. Ritter Ni, young, handsome, and single. She whispered, eyes gleaming. What's that got to do with me? I flipped open my notebook. Not even a little curious what he looks like. Nope. You're no fun. At ba. Wushaba, the door opened. Director Li walked in, followed by a man. Black suit. White shirt. dark patterned cufflinks. Tall, ramrod straight posture, moving with an air of authority. His gaze swept across everyone in the room with an innate command. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. Shun Hall. He was leaner than 2 years ago, sharper jawline, deeper set eyes. But those eyes, I'd seen them 1,000 times, I'd recognize them even if burned to ash. He stepped up to the podium, placed both hands on the table, leaned forward slightly, and spoke. Good morning, everyone. I'm Shane Hawkerin. Today, I'll be serving as the president of Stellar Design Institute. His voice was low, unhurried, each word driven into the air like an ale. The room fell silent. My fingers tightened around my coffee cup until my knuckles went white. Xiao Zhaoang whispered beside me, holy shit. He's hot. I didn't respond, I could barely breathe. Shen Hu's gaze moved from left to right to left. I thought he wouldn't recognize me. I cut my hair short. Lost 15 pounds. My whole demeanor was different from 2 years ago. But his eyes stopped on my face for just a second. Then he looked away, the corner of his mouth lifting almost imperceptibly in a knowing smile. Now, he said, straightening up and sliding his hands into his pockets, his tone casual as if commenting on the weather. Let me announce my first order of business. He paused. Lin Wan, project lead of Design Division 2, effective immediately, will be transferred to the president's office as my special assistant. The room erupted. Every eye turned to me like a spotlight. Xiao Zhaoang's mouth formed a perfect toe, an old book slipping from her fingers and hitting the floor with a thud. I froze. My coffee slid from my grip. The Americano splashed across the table, brown liquid dripping down the edge and soaking my pant leg. Shun Hao looked at me. His eyes deepened, unreadable. Lin Wan, he said my name slowly, tasting each syllable. Any problem with that? I looked up, meeting his gaze. There was something in it, testing, challenging, and something else I couldn't quite name. I took a deep breath, stood, and closed my soaked notebook. Then I smiled at him, my signature smile. Eyebrows arched, 8 teeth showing harmless on the outside, bulletproof underneath. Mr. Shunhai said, Yes, I have a problem. A collective gasp rippled through the room. The new president's first day. And someone was already challenging him to his face. Shunhai raised an eyebrow, signaling me to continue. The special assistant role requires coordinating between headquarters, strategy, and regional operations. To my knowledge, a division to project lead doesn't have that level of management experience. I'd like to know, Mr. Shunhai, what exactly is the basis for this appointment? The room went dead silent except for the low hum of the air conditioner. Shunhai stared at me, then suddenly laughed, a small laugh, but a real one. He stepped forward, placed both hands on the edge of the podium, and leaned in like a predator closing in on its prey. Lin Wan, he said, 2 years gone, and you're still so quick with your tongue. His voice wasn't loud, but in that hush, everyone heard. Xiao Zhaoang's eyes nearly popped out of her head. My smile froze on my face. Shunhai straightened up and scanned the room, his tone returning to business-like formality. Lin Wan's performance in Division 2 is backed by detailed data. The East China project she leaned saw a 500% profit increase, ranked first company-wide. This appointment is based on competence, nothing else. He paused, his gaze settling back on me. Meeting adjourned. Lin Wan, report to my office. He turned and walked away. Leather shoes clicked across the floor, tap, tap. Tap, just like the sound from the Civil Affairs Bureau 2 years ago. I stood frozen, my whole body rigid. Xiao Zhaoang tugged my sleeve. Zuji, do you know the new president? No. He said 2 years. He's got the wrong person. You're lying through your teeth. I didn't answer. I looked down at my coffee-soaked pants and thought how absurd this all was. 2 years ago, on the day of my divorce, I discovered I was carrying his child. 2 years later, he parachutes in as my boss. And his first move is to make me his special assistant. What the hell did this man want? I clenched my fists, nails digging into my palms. Whatever he wanted, Lin Wan wasn't afraid. I was just worried because taped to the inside of my desk drawer was a photo of Tang Yuan, and that little face, when she smiled, was the spitting image of Shen Yu. I stood outside the president's office, took a deep breath. The door wasn't fully shut, a crack remained. Through it, I heard Shen Yu on the phone, his voice cold as steel. I said, Stellar's personnel changes don't need Vice President Xiao's approval. Report directly to me. That's it. Goodbye. Vice President Xiao Zhi Gao. A Stellar veteran. 47. Balding on top, a smiling tiger in a suit. In my year and a half at the company, I heard plenty about him. He'd cornered the East China business for 8 years. His reach longer than an octopus's tentacles. I knocked twice and pushed the door open. Shen Hong. You sat behind his desk, jacket often draped over his chair, shirt sleeves rolled to his forearms, his wrist bones sharply defined. He twirled a pen in his fingers, looked up at me, his gaze sliding from my face to my chest, pausing for a moment before casually moving on. Sit. I sat down, opened my notebook, uncapped my pen. All business. Mr. Shen, I need clarification on the responsibilities of the special assistant role. Lin Wan. He cut me off, set down the pen, leaned forward with his fingers interlaced on the desk. How old is your daughter? My heart seized. I kept my face blank, even tilted my head with a confused expression. What daughter? Your left ring finger has a ring indentation. But you're not wearing one. Your phone lock screen is a child's hand. Last year's company health report shows you've had a C-section. He listed them off calmly, like reading a menu. So how old is your daughter? I looked down at my left hand. There was indeed a faint pale ring around my ring finger. 2 years since I'd taken off the wedding band. And the mark was still there. Mr. Shen's powers of observation are impressive, I said with a smile. But that's my private life, not work-related, is it? Not work-related. He agreed, leaning back in his chair, chin lifted slightly. But it is related to me. The air went still for 2 beats. What do you mean? Lin Wan. He said my name, his voice dropping low. On the day we divorced, you threw up at the Civil Affairs Bureau. My smile faltered. You were carrying my child. Not a question, a statement. The AC was blasting, but cold prick led down my spine. He'd investigated. No, he didn't need to. He deduced it himself from the small traces. This man had always been unsettlingly brilliant. Mr. Shenhalin. I stood, closing my notebook. If you called me here to discuss personal matters, I'm requesting a transfer back to Division 2. Sit down. I didn't. He stood too, walked around the desk, and came to stand before me. He was a head taller. I had to tilt my chin up to meet his eyes, to close enough to catch the faint scent of cedar on him. Exactly the same as 2 years ago. The child, he said, looking down at me, his Adam's apple bobbing. Is it mine? I gripped my notebook, nails denting the cover. No. You're right-eyed witches when you lie. My hand flew up to my right eye before I caught myself. I dropped it and glared at him. Shen Ho, what exactly are you trying to do? He held my gaze for a long moment, then stepped back, creating distance. He turned to the floor-to-ceiling window, hands in his pockets. Back to me. Xiao Zhi Gao is investigating you. I blinked. Why would he investigate me? Because you're my weak spot. He looked back over his shoulder, his face hard to read in the backlight. If he figures out why I transferred you to my side on my first day, he'll have found his angle to attack me. Since when am I your weak spot? Since the moment you signed the divorce papers. The words hit like nails driven into the softest part of my heart. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Shen walked back to his desk and pulled a file from the drawer, sliding it toward me. These are Xiao Zhi Gao's financial irregularities over the past 3 years. Inflated project cost. Supplier kickbacks about Arsha million yuan total. Headquarters sent me to Stellar for one job. Investigate him. I opened the filed ends data and bank statements. Xiaozi Hi Gao. Immaculate in his suit on the outside, dirty on the inside. The rumors had been around for years, but no one had ever gotten hard evidence. What does this have to do with me? Because you joined Stellar 2 years ago. Shen looked at me. Li Feng interviewed you, but the final approver was Xiaozi Hi Gao. He saw your resume, knew you were divorced, knew about me. He kept you at the company from the start as a chess piece. My mind went blank. What do you mean? He thought you were someone I'd planted. He wanted to use you to get leverage on me. But he couldn't find anything for 6 months because you and I really had no contact. He paused. Now, suddenly, you're my special assistant. He'll be even more certain you're my person and will double down on investigating you. So you're using me as bait? I'm asking you to be my partner. He slid another document across a new employment contract. Still a special assistant. Salary doubled. Help me take down Xiaozi Hi Gao. And Stellar is yours afterward. I looked at the contract and laughed. Shenhua, what makes you think I'd help you? Because you've never been one to stay in one place. He held my gaze. You've been in Division 2 for a year and a half. You've topped out as project lead. Don't you want to go higher? I did want to go higher, but not on my ex-husband's coattails. This isn't about connections. He flipped the contract to the last page, pointing to the job requirements. Special assistant gives you exposure to headquarters strategy, experience you're lacking. Work this for 1 year, and you can go to any department you want. I was quiet for a long time. The only sound was the AC humming through the vents. Finally, I said one condition. On work matters, I'll cooperate. But my personal life is off limits. Especially my daughter, she has nothing to do with you. The corner of Shen Mahal twitched, then quickly went flat. Deal? I picked up the pen and signed the contract. When I walked out of the president's office, my legs were weak. Xiao Zhaoang was waiting at the end of the hallway and yanked me into the break room. Suji, what exactly is your relationship with President Shen Hall, Boston's subordinate? Bull. The way he looked at you like he wanted to devour you. I choked on my own spit. Xiao Zhaoang, lay off the romance novels. I'm not reading them. I know from experience. She lowered her voice. You can always tell when a man's interested. That look was not how you look at an ordinary subordinate. I didn't respond. Through the break room window, I could see the small plaza downstairs, a few young mothers pushing strollers in the sun. I thought of Tang Yuan, probably at my mother's house, hoping she'd eaten lunch properly. My phone buzzed. My mom had sent a video. I tapped it open, and Tang Yuan's face filled the screen. She was holding a half-eaten apple and yelling at the camera, Mama. Mama. Her little voice melted my heart. Tang Yuan. Mama will be home after work. Mama hold. At night hold. Mama's working now. Working. Working. She mimicked me, giggling, showing off 8 little baby teeth. I ended the video and found Xiao Zhaoang staring at me oddly. Your daughter? Yeah. You're married? Divorced? And the father? I pocketed my phone, grabbed my bag and smiled at her. Dead. Xiao Zhaoang took the hint and didn't ask more. The days that followed were like a war campaign. Shen Hali was a workaholic in the office at 7, gone after 11. I followed his pace: meetings, contract reviews, client visits, document preparation non-stop. But I had to admit, the man was good at his job. Sharp analysis. Quick decisions. No PowerPoint he could win over a client with just his words. My first direct clash with Xiaozi Hi Gao came at the weekly meeting in the 3rd week. He sat at the left end of the conference table, round-faced, slightly pudgy, gold-rimmed glasses, smiling like a kindly middle school teacher. but the words out of his mouth were poison. President Shun, he said, pushing a report across the table, I have some questions about this quarter's profit figures for East China. Division 2's project costs are up by 50% from last quarter, while output has only increased by 50%. Doesn't that efficiency look a little concerning? Shem hawked the report. He looked straight at me. Lin, what's your take? I opened my data summary and smiled. Vice President Xiao, the cost increase is due to the new rendering software we've adopted. Higher upfront investment, but it'll improve efficiency by 50% down the line. This plan was approved at the budget meeting 3 months ago, and you signed off on it. I slid the signed document across the table toward him. He glanced down, his expression flickering briefly before the smile returned. Ah, right. I remember now. Getting old, my memory's not what it used to be. That's all right, Vice President Xiao. Shenhuo. His tone casually dismissive. As long as your books have a good memory, that's what matters. The jab was subtle but unmistakable. Everyone at the table caught the whiff of gunpowder. Xiao Zhigao adjusted his glasses, let out a dry laugh, and said no more. After the meeting, Shenhu called me aside. Good work just now. Part of the job. Your daughter, he suddenly changed tack. What's her name? I eyed him warily. We agreed no personal matters. Just her name. Not telling. Lin Nian. I froze. How do you know that? Your computer password is XN plus your birthday. XN Lin Nian. He looked at me, his expression complicated. Nian longing for whom? I didn't answer. I turned and walked away. As I left the conference room, Wei right which just as he'd said. That night, Tang Yuan was already asleep when I got home. My mother sat knitting in the living room, the TV on low volume. Mom, I said, changing into my slippers. Shen Ho is at my company. Her knitting needles stopped. What? He's the new president sent from headquarters. He recognized you? Yeah. And the child? I didn't answer. She sighed, put down her knitting, and pulled me onto the couch. Wan, let me ask you something. And be honest, do you still have feelings for him? I stared at the silent images on the TV and was quiet for a long time. I don't know. Not knowing means you do. Mom, I gave birth to you. I know you better than you know yourself. She patted my hand. When you got divorced, you said you weren't sad, but I heard you crying in your room at night. You think I didn't know? My nose stung, tears almost fell. You never told me why he divorced you. Because I didn't want to. I said, it's too embarrassing to talk about. The reason Shen Yu and I divorced was simple. His mother never liked me. From the day I entered that family, she found fault with everything: my modest background, my demanding job, my inability to cook or cater to her son. Shen Haiyu was caught in the middle. At first he defended me. Then gradually he stopped. Toward the end, he worked late every night, came home and went straight to bed, exchanging less than 5 sentences with me a day. I couldn't take it anymore. I asked for a divorce. He was silent all night. The next morning he said, okay. Just like that, 2 years of marriage ended. I told myself I didn't regret it. But now, standing in front of him, with him looking at me that way, I felt all my defenses crumbling, piece by piece. Pathetic. The next day at work, something big happened. Just after 9, Xiao Zhaoyang burst into my office, pale as a ghost. Suji, look at the company chat. I opened my phone. The company-wide group chat was in chaos. Someone had anonymously posted a screenshot of a paternity test report. It reads, subject Shunnu and child Lin Nian are confirmed biological father and daughter. The caption was just one line: the new president's illegitimate daughter works right here at our company. And Lin is quite the secret keeper. My brain exploded. My phone vibrated nonstop. Messages flooding in. Oh my God, Lin and President Shun have a child together. No wonder he transferred her right away, their family. Isn't that nepotism? She's basically the boss's wife, what do you expect? I gripped my phone, fingertips icy. Shunho Yu pushed the door open. His face dark. You saw it. Saw it. Xiaozi Hi Gao. He tossed his phone on the desk. He got hospital records. The clinic where you took your daughter for checkup, someone sold the data. I shot up. How did he? Bought it. Shenhui's was low, restrained fury beneath it. Legal's already sent a cease and desist. But once something like this gets out, you can't put the genie back in the bottle. So what now? So he looked at me. Now you have to distance yourself from me. No. The opposite. He walked over, placed his hands on the arms of my chair, trapping me in. Wan, he said my name softly. Like a sigh. I'm going public. You're insane. I'm not. He looked down at me, eyes bloodshot. Clearly he hadn't slept. Since Xiaozi Hi Gao has shown his cards, we play ours face up. You're my ex-wife. Tang Yuan is my daughter. I'm done hiding it. Have you thought about the consequences? I have. He lifted a hand, his thumb brushing lightly against my cheek. Worst case, headquarters investigates and transfers me out. But before that, I'll make sure Zhi Hi Gao ends up behind bars. You. He cut me off. Walking away 2 years ago was my fault. I shouldn't have let you go. Those words hit like a sledgehammer against the hardest bone in my chest. I bit my lip, fighting it. But the tears came anyway. Shenhal, I croaked, barely audible. Where the hell were you when I needed you? He didn't answer. He bent his head and pressed his forehead to mine. I'm sorry. 3 words light as feathers, heavy as gold. Going public was messier than I'd imagined. That afternoon, Shen held another all-hands meeting, stood on that same podium, faced the same crowd, and said something that rendered the room utterly silent. Lin Wan is my ex-wife. Wen Nian is our daughter. The divorce 2 years ago was my fault, not hers. Today's announcement is to clarify the facts, not to ask for sympathy. He paused, his gaze sweeping the room. If anyone uses this to attack or spread rumors about my family, legal will pursue it. Xiaozi Hi Gao sat in the front row, his standard smile in place, applauding enthusiastically. After the meeting, headquarters sent an investigative team. The head was a man named Zhu, early 40s. Lean, wearing rimless glasses, speaking with impeccable caution. Lin, when you joined Stellar, did President Shun provide any form of assistance? No. I was interviewed by Director Li, and Vice President Xiao did the final approval. President Shun hadn't been assigned to Stellar at that time. After your divorce, did you have any financial dealings with President Shenhain? No. Child support? President Shun didn't know about the child's existence and paid no support. Director Zhu jotted a few notes. So President Shun only learned about you and the child after his assignment here? Yes. All right. That's all. The investigation lasted a week. Final conclusion: Shun Yu had violated no regulations. His appointment of me as special assistant was based on professional qualifications and followed proper procedure. Xiaozi Hi Gao's move hadn't toppled Shun Yu, it had only exposed himself. Shenhai and Xiaozi Hi Gao's 3 years of financial irregularities into a report and submitting it to headquarters, Economic Investigation Division. The day Xiaozi Hi Gao was suspended pending investigation, the whole floor heard his door slam. Don't get cocky, Shenhe. You think you've won? Headquarters knows all about your dirty dealings with that woman. You'll never move up now. Shenhe's office doorway, hands in his pockets, expression as calm as still water. Vice President Xiao, instead of worrying about my future, maybe worry about explaining the Archimillion Yuan hole to the investigators. Xiaozi Hi Gao's face turned purple. His finger trembled as he pointed at Sheng Yu. Just you wait, you'll see. He left. The corridor fell silent. Shen hurried back into his office, closed the door, and leaned against it with his eyes shut for a moment. I sat on the sofa, watching him, and felt a pang of pity. You okay? She opened his eyes and looked at me. When I want to meet Tang Yuan. My heart stopped. Now. Today. I need to ask my mom. I'll go with you. I wanted to refuse. But the bloodshot eyes, the careful exhaustion in his voice, the refusal lodged in my throat and wouldn't come out. In the end, I nodded. My mother opened the door and saw Shen Yu behind me. Her face cycled through 3 shades of alarm. Hello, Auntie. Shen Hu smiled, his tone surprisingly deferential. She ignored him and looked straight at me. Why did you bring him here? Mom, he wants to see Tang Yuan. Where was he 2 years ago? Auntie Shen Hu's head bowed. It was my fault. Back then, I failed to handle the family situation properly and hurt Lin Wan. She's been raising our child alone for 2 years and I didn't know. I failed as a father. My mother stared at him for a full 10 seconds, then let out a cold huff. Fine. Come in. Tang Yuan was sitting on the carpet building blocks, wearing pink footy pajamas, her hair into little buns, round cheeks smeared with cookie crumbs. When she heard the door, she looked up with big black eyes like grapes. Mama. She dropped her blocks and toddled over, hugging my leg. I scooped her up and kissed her cheek. Tang Yuan. Mama brought an uncle to see you. Tang Yuan turned to look at Shen Hu, tilting her head to steady him. Shen Yu stood there, hands at his sides, fingers trembling. His eyes were red, his Adam's apple bobbed repeatedly, but he couldn't get a word out, a man who commanded boardrooms, completely disarmed by a toddler. Uncle Tang Yuan suddenly said, her little voice piping up. Shen Hu's fell instantly. He stepped forward, reached out, then pulled his hand back, afraid of startling her. Tang Yuan, he rasped, his voice wrecked. Can I hold you? Tang Yuan looked at me. I nodded. She opened her little arms toward him. Hold. He took her from me, cradling her as if she were made of glass. She settled on his shoulder, her small hand clutching his collar, babbling something softly. Shen closed his eyes, his chin resting on her downy hair, his shoulders shaking. I stood beside them, crying too. My mother watched from the kitchen doorway, eyes red. She turned and went back inside. The door clicked shut. That night, Shen hovered 2 hours in Tang Yuan's room. He read her stories haltingly, made her formula, testing the temperature 3 times, fumbled through a diaper change while Tang Yuan giggled and kicked him in the face. I watched from the doorway and heard a voice inside me say, Lin Wan, you're done for. You're going to fall for this man all over again. Xiao Zigao's case was more complicated than expected. After his suspension, his people fought back. Several major clients suddenly pulled their contracts, citing instability in management. Shen Yu flew to 3 cities in as many days, personally visiting each one, and managed to salvage most of the business. But I knew the pressure was wearing on him. One night at our I got a message from him, still awake, feeding the baby. At this hour, Tang Yuan was fussy, just got her back down. A 2-minute silence, then a voice message. I hesitated, then tapped it. His voice was low, rough, like he'd been drinking. Wan, I've regretted every day of these 2 years without you. I put my phone face down on the nightstand, stared at the ceiling, and let the tears slide silently into my pillow. The next day at work, he acted as if nothing had happened, reviewing documents behind his desk. But I noticed a new ring on his left ring finger, a simple silver band, identical to the one I'd worn during our marriage. I didn't ask. He didn't mention it. The breakthrough in Xiao Zigao's case came in the 3rd month. The investigators confirmed the inflated costs and supplier kickbacks are 10 million yuan in total. He was formally arrested. That day, Shen Hao got a call from headquarters. President Shun headquarters has decided to appoint you Vice President of Stellar Design Institute, China region, overseeing both East China and North China. Thank you for the trust." He hung up and looked at me, standing beside him. When I told you take down Zhao Zhi Gao, and Stellar is yours." So he pulled a small box from his pocket and opened it. Inside was a diamond ring. "I'm asking you, officially, will you marry me again?" I looked at the ring and laughed. "Shen Lai, that's a pretty low-effort proposal. No flowers, no candles, no getting down on one knee." He blinked, and he actually dropped to one knee. His suit trousers brushed the floor with a soft rustle. He looked up at me, his eyes bright. "Lin Wan, marry me." The office door suddenly burst open. Xiao Zhaoang stood in the doorway holding the cups of coffee, her mouth forming a perfect O. Holy shit, she slammed the door shut. From outside, her shriek echoed, "Zhu Ji just got proposed to. Everyone come." The hallway exploded. I laughed despite myself. Looking down at Shenhe and Yu kneeling before me, he was blushing. Shenhe, the man who dismantled enemies in the boardroom, was blushing. "Get up first. Not until you say yes. There are people watching. Let them watch." I bit my lip and extended my left hand. He slid the ring onto my finger, perfect fit. Then he stood, pulled me into his arms, and kissed me. The screams from outside reached a fever pitch. I closed my eyes and thought, "Lin Wan, you've really done it this time, completely and utterly." The wedding was set for the following spring. Tang Yuan wore a little white tulle dress, a flower crown, and carried a basket of petals as the flower girl, wobbling down the island, scattering petals everywhere so adorable that all the guests laughed. Shenhe, you stood at the other end of the red carpet, black suit, a white gardenia at his lapel. When he saw me walking toward him in my wedding dress, his eyes reddened again. My mother sat in the front row, sobbing openly. I reached Shenhe. He held out his hand, and I took it. His palm was warm, calloused, gripping tight like he was afraid I'd run. "Shenhe," I said quietly, "if you ever divorce me again, I'll blow up your company." He laughed, eyes crinkling, just like Tang Yuan. "Never," he said. "I wouldn't dare." As we exchanged rings, Tang Yuan suddenly ran over and hugged Shun Yu's leg, looking up and calling out, "Daddy." The room went silent for one beat. Then thunderous applause. Shenhe up and planted a big kiss on her cheek. Tang Yuan, say it again. "Daddy, daddy, daddy." Tang Yuan giggled, her little palms slapping his face. I stood beside them, and finally let the tears flow running through my makeup and down my cheeks. The MC raised the microphone, his voice a little choked. "The groom may now kiss the bride." Shenhe and Tang Yuan to my mother, turned back to me, cupped my face in both hands, and wiped the tears from my cheeks with his thumbs. "Lin Wan," he said softly, "thank you for coming back." "I didn't come back," I sniffled. "You found me." He smiled, bent his head, and kissed me. The sunlight was warm, the spring breeze gentle. In my mother's arms, Tang Yuan clapped and shouted, "Mama, hold." The guests cheered, petals rained down from above, covering us both. I thought back to that winter morning 2 years ago, lying alone in the delivery room, holding my wrinkled little Tang Yuan, naming her Lin Nian. Nian Nian Bu Wang, by Yu Huixiang. If you remember and never forget, there will surely be an echo. I had finally found mine.